You're what's poppin', gang? Hope everybody here. Hope y'all got it. This is Smoking with Peso. Let's get into it. So we got this dude at 17 caught so many bodies at the Rolling 40s threw a party when he got smoked. Definitely think we gonna need a 93 for this one. But if you're new to the channel, remember like, share, subscribe, comment, ring that bell, and let's get it right into this thing, man. Let's get it.
Picture perfect
See
moment.
how bad
It
he
was
really
more like
was,
a warning
man.
shot, signaling that life for this baby boy was about to be anything but easy. Now, for people who only heard about the jungles from that Oscar-winning flick Training Day, the place might sound like a war zone. But to the ones who actually lived there, it was home. It got the nickname the jungle because the neighborhood was full of tropical trees, palms, banana plants, begonias, all crowding around these old apartment buildings from the post-war era. Places with names like Coco Capri and the Islander, complete with swimming pools and courtyards filled with birds of paradise. From the balconies, you could catch views of the Santa Monica Mountains, the Hollywood sign, and the white dome of Griffith Observatory shining like a crown. It was beautiful on the outside. Back in the 60s, Baldwin Village was mixed. Japanese and black families mostly. There was still some peace then. Teenagers weren't pressed to claim colors or rep blocks, but the vibe started shifting after the Watts riots. White people left, property values dropped, and that little alley between the apartments turned into Sherm Alley, a dope spot where PCP flowed heavy. Crack followed right behind, and that's when the community started spiraling. The buildings that once held working class families turned into subsidized housing. Immigrant Latino families moved in, and at the same time, young black professionals were sliding in too, drawn by cheap rent and big apartments. It wasn't all gloom.
I'm so tired of these ass, man.
There were epic parties, the kind where people floated from apartment to apartment like it was one giant house party. But above all that fun, there was always the sound of the ghetto birds, helicopters slicing through the sky, beaming like
I was gonna say, if y'all don't know what ghetto birds is, then the helicopters out.
like they were hunting someone. They flew low, real low, like they were trying to snatch the whole block out of the sheets. By the early 80s, things got tense. You'd see groups of young dudes posted up on hoods, blocking sidewalks, leaning off balconies like sentinels. And the violence, man, it was nonstop. Every week came with news. Someone got shot, someone got jumped. Bullet holes in trees, in concrete, even in living room walls. People downstairs from you might start shooting at each other over nothing, just pure madness. And the money, barely there. The average household scraped by on $36,500, and nearly a third of families were living below the poverty line. Gangs, court orders or not, they weren't going nowhere. In 1990, the city tried to clean up the image, renamed it Baldwin Village, hoping people would start linking it with the more upscale Baldwin Hills right next door. But the new name couldn't erase the reality on the ground. Two major gangs ran the block, the Black P Stones and 18th Street, black and Latino, rivals since forever. Cops blamed them for a long list of shootings and robberies. And while residents mostly agreed the violence was gang-related, many believed it was also fueling deep racial tension between the two communities. This was the world Dante was born into. These streets taught him how to walk, how to talk, how to watch his back. By the time he hit 13, he wasn't thinking about high school or after-school programs. Nah, his eyes were already locked on something else. He joined the Black P Stones, chasing a sense of power and survival in a world that never handed him either. Now, the Black P Stones, or BPS, have been known in the streets for a minute. Deep-rooted, active, and black-lit, they call the east side of South Central LA home. Back in the day, people said there were around 700 of them in total, and nearly 400 stacked heavy in one spot, Baldwin Village. That's where they built the name, where the streets started whispering about them. The movement kicked off with a man known as OGT Rogers. He wasn't just some random. He came out of Chicago once repping the Blackstone Rangers and brought that fire to LA in the late 60s.
Yeah.
Now the Black P Stones split into two main cliques. On one side, you got the city Stone Bloods. People in the know might call them the Bitey. They post up in the mid-city Arlington Heights area. On the other, you got the Jungle Stone Bloods holding it down in Baldwin Village.
But then when people be asking like, why he choose that lifestyle? Why he choose that lifestyle? It's not necessarily like he chose the lifestyle. The lifestyle chose him. It just chose him earlier than it chose other people. You know what I'm saying? It chose him earlier than it chose other people. So, yeah, it seemed like, oh, why did he choose this life? And then he didn't choose it. It's not like he woke up and was like, oh, I want to be like this. No, it's just what he grew up seeing. What he,
Village. Before all the splitting and cliques, the City
it's
Stones
all
used to
about
be
where you
known as
where you
the
grow up,
21st
bro.
Street
That makes a
Black
big
P
difference
Stones.
on how you
That was
raised
back
and
when
how
they
you
moved as one big
is when you
unit,
an adult.
no breakups. Today, you'll still find the Bitey in the West Adams and Mid-City, part of South Central, in the stretch between Washington and Adams Boulevards, from Crenshaw to Arlington. That big Santa Monica freeway, it cuts their neighborhood right down the middle. Inside those blocks, you'll hear about smaller crews, 21st, 25th, 27th, and 29th Streets. Each one got its own rep. Even though they ride with the Rollin' 20 Bloods in that area, their real bond is with the Jungle Stones over in Baldwin Village. See, the Jungle Stones were born when the City Stones linked up with another crew, the Jungle Boys. This went down in the early 70s, and just like that, the Jungle Boys became the Jungle Stones.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's how the Black P Stones took root in a second neighborhood. The Jungle Stones didn't do all that clique dividing stuff like the Bitey. If you came from that part of Baldwin Village,
That's what
you
it
were
was.
simply a Jungle Stone. No extra label needed. Their territory is locked in the Crenshaw area, right there in Baldwin Village. Those apartments tucked behind the Crenshaw Mall. Between Crenshaw and La Brea, that whole pocket, that's what they call the Jungles. They claim all of Baldwin Village, and the numbers reflect that. Over 1,000 active members in LA alone, and they say 40,000 plus nationwide. These ain't just local stories either. The BPS name has been all in headlines: murder charges, robberies, gunplay, substance operations, you name it. The LAPD and FBI have been watching closely for years. So imagine being a young boy like Dante, growing up in all that. In that world, you got two options: join up or get preyed on. And being a target out there ain't just risky, it's life or death. That's like stepping outside every day with a target on your chest, just waiting for somebody to pull. Dante knew the streets didn't offer mercy. So one day, he made his choice. He picked up that Glock, and from that moment on, his path was set. There weren't any rewinds in that kind of life. Word started moving through the block like wildfire. Whispers about this young dude, barely in his teens, but already catching bodies and catching fear. They were calling him Infant Nightmare. Yeah, that's the name that started sticking. While most kids his age were busy texting their little crush or begging for a new pair of sneakers, Dante was out here making grown men double check who was walking behind them at night. But real talk, how does a baby-faced 13-year-old end up with a name like Infant Nightmare? Word was, he was stepping to older gang members like he'd been born into the war. No hesitation, just all business. And in a world where fear is currency, that kind of coldness, that'll turn a nobody into a legend real quick. By 14, Dante wasn't just some tag-along watching from the curb anymore. He was moving different. The older heads in the Black P Stones started watching him closely, like somebody they might actually want to pass the torch to one day. And Dante, he didn't talk much. He just soaked it all in, getting himself right for his time to lead. But here's where it gets heavy. This wasn't no underdog story with a happy ending waiting at the finish line. What was happening to Dante wasn't growth. It was a slow walk toward a grave. Every step up the ladder in the gang came with a price. and he was paying in advance, even if he didn't know it. And by the time Dante hit 15, he wasn't just active, he was a storm ripping through South Central. Word on the streets was he wasn't just pressing the usual soldiers. Nah, he was sliding on OGs, the kind of cats who'd been holding down blocks since the crack era. And Dante, he wasn't out here chasing stripes or clout. To him, this was about loyalty. He was ready to die behind that rag, no hesitation. But when you start climbing like that, everybody starts reaching for your ankles. The higher he rose, the more heads turned. Every hit he made on the rolling 40s, that wasn't just another check mark, it was a new enemy added to the list. And the more that list grew, the more sets got pulled in. One of the biggest to step into the mix, the 18th Street Gang. To understand how deep that beef really ran, you have to rewind the clock to the early 60s, straight to the Rampart District in LA. That's where 18th Street first popped off.
Hey, he was bruising them boys. I ain't even gonna lie. He was hitting them boys up. He was bruising them. I'm telling you. He had the ops scared. It sounded like he had the ops terrified, gang.
Right
I'm
around
not gonna lie to
18th
you.
and
It sounded like he
Union,
was terrified.
a spot known as Pico Union.
He was out here rocking
It started
out.
when another gang, Clanton Street, only allowed full-blooded Mexicans in. So all the kids who didn't fit that mold, mixed race, Central American, even a few black kids, they formed their own thing. That's how Barrio 18 came to life. Over time, they didn't just stick to one block. They spread across the city, setting up shop in neighborhoods like East Side, South Side, North Side, and West Side LA, each one with their cliques. Crews like King Boulevard G's, Columbia Little Psychos, Shadow Park Locos, Bobitos, and dozens more. Each clique ran like its own small army, but they all waved the same flag. At first, they mostly recruited from Mexican immigrant communities, but as LA changed, so did the gang. Salvadorans, Hondurans, Guatemalans, they all found a home under that Barrio 18 umbrella. That opened the door for the gang to expand outside the US, especially after the immigration crackdowns in the 90s. A lot of members got deported, and instead of fading out, they rebuilt down in Central America. What was meant to be a law enforcement win turned into a pipeline. Now they're deep in El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, running extortion rackets, moving dope, and still keeping ties with their LA cliques. Even behind bars, some of their big dogs, like Puppet, who ran things from inside, kept the gears turning. And while they aren't the biggest fish in Mexico, they've made enough noise to link with cartels like the Zetas or Sinaloa when it helps their hustle. Still, they're more survivalists than strategists. Less kingpin, more street general. Their bread and butter stays the same. Drugs, hits for hire, shaking people down, and running their blocks like war zones. And joining, that came with pain. Either take an 18-second beatdown or catch a body, no exceptions. For women, it was even grimier. Get jumped in, get passed around, or earn it by proximity. But make no mistake, 18th Street isn't just some loose crew. They answer to La Emi, the Mexican mafia, especially in Cali. That alliance gave them structure and protection inside prison walls and out on the streets. And while law enforcement says they didn't have hard proof or international drug trafficking, everybody on the ground knows they move weight, meth, heroin, crack, weed, you name it. Hell, the feds even say they've got members in the military flipping uniforms into opportunities. Combat training, weapons, transportation, anything they could turn into an edge, they did. But for all that power, they still got enemies on every corner. Florencia 13, Norteños, blood sets, especially ones like Black Peace Stones. The streets were already lit with rivalries, and now Dante had just added fuel to an old fire. By putting 18th Street in his sights, he didn't just expand the war, he kicked the hornet's nest. Even the vets, the OGs who'd seen everything, started looking at Dante different. The kid was living up to his name. Infant Nightmare wasn't just something people said, It was something they felt. But with all the bodies, the heat, the enemies, one question was hanging heavy over the hood. How long could he really keep this going? In a world where today's kingpin can be tomorrow's memory, Dante was out here playing with fire and no plan B in sight. No backup, no exit strategy, just pure heat and ambition pushing him forward. And if you think you've heard every wild story to come out of South Central, this one right here, it'll make all the rest sound like bedtime stories. July
We ain't even
29th,
gotten to the story yet.
2018. That
Oh,
date
that's crazy.
still echoes through the streets like a warning. That
That's
was the
crazy.
night Dante decided to let the whole city know he wasn't playing. He wasn't just trying to make noise, he was looking to make history, but the kind that leaves blood on the pavement and names carved into headlines. It was creeping past midnight, and Dante was rolling through the city with his crew, locked in and ready for war. Their mission was clear: find the rolling 40s and send a message they wouldn't forget. The streets were quiet, but not peaceful. That kind of silence only meant one thing: something was about to pop off. Every alley looked suspect, and every pair of headlights had people on edge. And then they saw them, 43rd and Vermont, right there on the corner. Dante's eyes locked on his target, a heavy hitter from the 40s they called Africa. The car screeched to a stop. Dante jumped out, gun blazing like he'd rehearsed this moment in his head 100 times. Chaos erupted. But here's the thing about chaos: it doesn't follow scripts. It doesn't care about your plans. Dante didn't hit Africa. Instead, the bullet caught Tiny Hardhead, another rolling 40, and not some low-level soldier either. Tiny had weight in the streets. He had people, respect, and serious ties. Now he was laid out on the pavement, blood pouring, life slipping. Then came the aftershock. More yelling, more gunshots, sirens screaming from every direction. The whole night collapsed into madness. But Dante, he stood in the middle of it like he just leveled up. In his head, this was the moment, the one where the streets finally gave him his crown. South Central's next legend, the one who took what he wanted and dared anybody to say something about it. But what he didn't know, he had just stomped straight into something terrible. The kind you
Work.
As soon as I get into it, bro, every
play.
time. As soon as I get into it, bro.
don't walk away from
Golly.
easily. Tiny's people weren't the type to let things slide. Not when they had ties that ran deep, all the way down to the 55 neighborhood Crips. Now the 55 NHC, as people call them, got history. Back in the 80s, they were the 55 Hustlers. But once the 90s hit, they rebranded and locked in with the neighborhood Crips. You'd catch them posted on the west side of South Los Angeles, what most still call South Central. They're part of the bigger neighborhood Crip family, but more specifically, they roll with the Rollin' 50 neighborhood Crips. That Rollin' 50 set is like a squad made up of three main cliques: the 55s, the 57s, and the 58s. The 50s got their name from 55th Street, right between Vermont and Normandy. And out of all three, the 55 neighborhood Crips are the biggest. Street Talk says they have around 90 known members, but it's always more than what's on paper. So when Dante ran up on him the way he did, thinking he was untouchable, he basically threw gas on a fire. Him and his crew dipped out, left a mess behind like it was nothing. But South Central doesn't move in silence. Word traveled quickly from block to block, barbershops to police scanners, and just like that, everybody was talking about Dante, but not like he was a king, more like a dead man walking. For 2 straight months, the jungles turned into a war zone. Not even exaggerating, it felt like a damn action movie. Bullets flying in broad daylight, drive-bys like clockwork, people ducking just to grab a bag of chips from the corner store. Nowhere was off limits. Not the courts, not front porches, not even inside people's own cribs. And when the smoke finally started to clear, 3 more bodies had dropped. 3 more families left grieving over a war that didn't make sense to anybody on the outside. And the wildest part, all that chaos had one name attached to it: Dante. They called him the infant nightmare. Young, reckless, and already knee-deep in street politics, way bigger than him. The Rolling 40s and Rolling 50s both had one mission: find Dante. That was it. Nothing else mattered. Dante wasn't no fool, though. He knew he lit a fire he couldn't put out, so he vanished. But even when you disappear, your name doesn't. On the streets, a rep moves louder than a body. Dante's name started ringing even more once he went ghost. One minute he was a shooter, the next he was the most wanted man in South Central by the ops and the boys in blue. Now the cops, they showed up trying to patch up the city like a flat tire. But out here, people don't trust the police. They trust word of mouth, cousin's cousin, or the OG down the block. The streets talk, but they don't talk to 12. Everybody knew that snitching came with more than just stitches. It could be your life. Fast forward to October 3rd, 2018. That's when it all came crashing down. Dante's luck ran dry in a way nobody saw coming. Everything he'd been dodging finally caught up. It started off like any regular day in the hood. Just a little past 5 in the afternoon, Dante was posted up on the sidewalk around the 6,200 block of South Vermont Avenue, deep in the Vermont Slauson area. He wasn't alone. A couple of homies with him, cooling, talking, just another typical day. Then, out of nowhere, 2 people pulled up and started letting off shots. No words, no warning. Bullets flew. Dante and 2 other dudes got hit. The shooters hopped in a car and peeled off like they never existed. Paramedics came fast and rushed Dante to the hospital, but the damage was already done. Coroner records say he was pronounced dead at 5:51 p.m., just 19 years old. But that's when the neighborhood energy shifted. The streets started humming, whispers flying faster than the bullets that took Dante, and the wildest rumors started making rounds. It wasn't some well-known hitter or rival OG that pulled the trigger. Word was it was a female shooter. From the rolling 40s, a woman. That detail alone had everybody twisted. Dante wasn't just some random dude. He was the infant nightmare. So when he dropped, the shock hit deep. Even people who didn't mess with him were low-key stunned. Some felt a weird sense of relief. Others, straight up nervous, because everybody knew what came next. In that world, one body never means closure. It means retaliation. The Black P Stones felt that loss really bad. Dante was one of their top shooters. And in that life, you don't just let something like that slide. But this war wasn't just on the pavement anymore. It spilled into the digital world too. Social media lit up. Dudes from rival sets went online clowning Dante, turning his death into content, posting memes, dissing him in videos, making sure their hate lived longer than he did. Some were literally dancing on his grave, both in the real world and on the internet, and it didn't stop there. The rolling 40s, they took the beef to the booth, dropping tracks with Dante's name in them, turning street hits into bars. That alone said how deep his name ran, how much noise he made in his short run. Because the real ones, the top tier hitters, they don't last long. That story always ends one of 2 ways, death or a life sentence. Still, the BPS keeps his name alive. They honor Dante to this day. In their world, he's not forgotten. He's a symbol, a warning, and maybe to some, a legend. What are your thoughts on this story? Appreciate you watching. If you enjoy
RP the dude. Man, like I said, I look, I tell everybody, bro. Like he said, it's really 3 ways. You know what I'm saying? You either go to jail. You know what I'm saying? You either die, or you get lucky. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people don't get lucky. That's why they don't like to include that one. A lot of people don't get lucky. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, like I said, bro, you are what you grew up around, bro. You are the product of your environment. So that was his environment, bro. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Oh, why he knew his time was gonna come eventually, bro. That's what come with it. You know what I'm saying? He knew the second he picked up that hammer and went to go do what he did. He knew it was it's only a matter of time before they catch up with me. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just what it is, gang. Like that's just how it is out here. You know what I'm saying? Like no matter what city you in, whether you in New York, LA, St. Louis, Chicago, it don't matter where you at. Baltimore. It don't matter where you at. You know what I'm saying? It don't matter. You know what I'm saying? Like either way it goes, it's gonna be one or three ways. Really one or two ways, but one or three ways that you're gonna get out of it. And I say one or three ways just to give you a little bit of hope. But you really don't need no hope, so I'm gonna say one or two ways. So if you're a youngin' on this watching, boys, if you stay in school, if you wanna be the Ross football player, be the Ross football player. Go to the NFL with it. If you like to read books, be raw reading books. Write them. You know what I'm saying? Like you ain't gotta be gangster to be cool, bro. Just be you. And at the end of the day, if they don't rock with you, you know what I'm saying? You don't care. But that's it for this video, man. If you made it this far, remember to like, share, subscribe, comment, ring that bell. Let me know what y'all think in the comments about my boy, man. He was rocking out. He did his thing. He did what he was. You know what I'm saying? Hey. You know what I'm saying? Hey. R.I.P. to bro, but my condolence to him and his people. But yeah, catch y'all on the next one. We gone. You did.